Hello, my sweet friends, and welcome back to Sidebar with Kennedy McMahon. That was my radio voice. I feel like I'm out of practice. Oh, my dog would really like to come in from the porch. Leonard, we have not even started. I don't know how anyone works from home. Here I am attempting it, and lots of you do this all the time. Okay, Leonard has been tended to. I've got my latte. I've got my biggest sweater. We've got a puppy who just ran up into a beautiful big armchair. I think we're set to go. Well, everyone, who would have guessed? I have, to my delight, truly, received so many messages and comments and requests from personal friends, Leah, and others, to resume this podcast. And, I take seriously my responsibility as an obsessive self-observer to share my thoughts unfiltered with you about all sorts of things. And mostly, I am really excited about incorporating this video element. Hello! You're watching me on a video, either on YouTube or you're watching this via the video feature on Spotify, hopefully. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or a different platform and there is no video, well, that means I'm not able to put it there. And I will when I can. And in the meantime, come watch on YouTube. Wow, this feels so fun. I love that I can sit and talk to you uninterrupted, focused. Well, maybe focused sometimes. And you can see me. And if you've ever watched any of my other YouTube videos, you know that I really just like to talk. And this is really, perhaps, dare I say, an even more appropriate place to do that. Excuse the giant panel of sun on my body. I'm trying to get my vitamin D. I also am doing this really impromptu. Truthfully, I'm getting a little hot, but I love this sweater. Here's a story about this sweater. Well, no, hold on. Let me just explain how the story goes with me ending up here impromptu today and not considering that the sun would be in this placement. But I actually think it's kind of pretty. I'm doing this last minute because I just put up my first sort of return to YouTube video yesterday. It was a vlog, and so many people were so loving and supportive and so excited to see the video, which was so kind and much appreciated and really cool. And then so many people were like, bring back your podcast. And I sort of thought that, I don't know, basically a year ago, which was around when I had just started this podcast, I went through some crazy work ups and downs. I can't even get into it. But essentially, I was really busy, which was great, with very little to show for it, which was not so great. Don't get me wrong, progress as an actor is very hard to pin down. Obviously, there's the tangible progress of actually getting jobs. And don't get me wrong, I've worked this year. I have 2 really exciting projects that should be coming out next year that I'm really excited to share with you. But that was not the majority of my year. The majority of my year was almost getting a lot of very cool jobs. And that in itself is a really awesome accomplishment, but that really started to kick off about a year ago. And that was basically when I had been about a month into this podcast. And to be honest, because I edit these myself, which maybe in the future I won't, so that it's even possible, but editing takes so long. And the other part of it is that I struggle listening to myself so much because I'm so long-winded and I say the same things over and over again in just slightly altered ways. And I don't know, I'm obviously an overthinker by nature, and I think maybe sometimes editing myself, I think I was just being too precious, but it basically felt like I was trapped sometimes in like a whirlpool of my own head. So I just needed a little break because I was going through a lot. End of 2020, oh gosh, okay, this is 2025. 2024 was a year ago when those job things were happening. That is correct. The year before that was 2023. So at the end of 2023, I was going through it. The Hollywood strikes were coming to a close, which obviously was great, but a lot of things that were hopefully going to come into fruition no longer could. And then it started this up and down with like another version of the same project in a different place. I'm trying to be loose with my language here because, I don't want to get too in the weeds with anything specific, but if you catch my drift, you probably know what I'm talking about. Sorry if this is annoying. I don't know. Whatever. So that was a lot of emotional up and down. And then basically I just went through a lot of long casting processes that were great, and rooms that, I was really excited to be in. And, these are lengthy processes and they take a lot of your time, and not everybody gets the job at the end of the day. And that is just sort of what it is. So yeah, that's why I stopped, basically. But I love this dynamic with you. Like, I feel like you guys are like my close friend's Instagram story. In a way. Things are a little bit more stable now. And yeah, I'm just kind of, I don't know, I feel like I'm in the chapter of my life where I'm like a person with an identity outside of my job, which is very healthy for me and in general, good. I really miss doing these kind of mental, emotional deep dives with you, or just telling you funny or dumb stories, of which I've acquired many more. So anyway, I'm really happy to be back. Obviously, this setup is a little different because you're watching me on video, as we discussed. But here's the thing. So because of the emphasis on having something nice for you to look at, because I think this is pretty beautiful, but it might certainly will negatively impact the sound quality because I'm not in a very soundproof room. So what's the preference? The best possible audio, or like a nice background? I was going to tell you a story about this sweater that I'm wearing, which is that I cannot wear this sweater without thinking about right after I had purchased this sweater, I was filming season 4 of Nancy Drew, and I really wanted to treat myself. I treated myself, dare I say, a little too much, but we're not going to get into that. But I bought this sweater, and I went to work the next day, and I remember feeling kind of weird and maybe a little run down, but we were getting COVID tested all the time at that point, so I was like, I was really only worried about COVID. And I was like, okay, I don't have COVID. Great. Just feeling a bit funny. And long story short, I ended up, as we were filming, this was, episode, it's gone. It's the one where, spoilers for season 4 of Nancy Drew if you haven't seen it. It's the one where the Shelby glass has implanted this tiny little tracking device into Nancy's spine, and she's going to sacrifice her to the Sin Eater, Tristan. That episode, by the way, has one of my favorite scenes I've ever filmed. Not even that it was my favorite scene on its own, though I love the scene, but it was just like the experience filming it between me and Madison. It was when Nancy and Bess are sort of like confabbing in the manager's office, and Nancy's like, I need to know how to talk to the ghost that Ace is talking to. And Bess is like, what's wrong with you? And then Nancy like tells her that she's going to die. And I don't know, the energy of that scene was really, we just had a blast filming that. That was one of my favorites. Anyway, this episode, earlier in the episode, we were filming the scene where Nancy enters the claw with Ryan. They think they're alone, and Nancy's talking about how she called to the Sin Eater, and she's like, I think she knew she called to the Sin Eater at this point. And she's talking about, just, I'm bad. And then they hear Bess, and then we find out that Bess knows. And anyway, that's the scene we're filming, okay? And I am feeling worse and worse as the seconds pass. And I start to become so miserable because here's the thing, and this is not something to celebrate. I didn't in the past at this time know how to say, I can't do this right now. I was so ill. And it's just really hard to, in that environment, admit that, because it is a really big problem if in the position I was in, if I was sick. And so I was trying really hard to just not be sick. And turns out I had a 104-degree fever. I had the flu so badly. I literally had to I had ice all as we were waiting for someone to come and pick me up and take me back to my apartment and have the doctor come and visit me. I was literally covered in ice, laying privately in the gas tent, weeping. This is funny to me now. It's okay. Don't feel bad or anything. And when I went home, I basically was totally bedridden. I could not walk. Walking across my apartment felt impossible. And I wore this blue sweater for 5 days straight. I've washed it since. But after I wore it for 5 days straight, because I had just gotten it, and I was like, oh, well, how perfect for my illness. And it was perfect for that time. But yeah. Then I didn't want to wear it for a while because it just reminded me of utter misery. So now that that's out of the way, welcome back to Sidebar. I can't wait to get into today's topic because I still don't quite know what I feel about it. This is the kind of thing, this thought has sort of been bubbling, or I guess maybe this lesson, or maybe just this idea to experiment with. And I feel like I need to talk it through with you to wrap my head around what it is I actually think about it. I will preface this by saying I am someone who, to probably no one's surprise, feels really big feelings. And I'm very drawn and led by my feelings. And I don't necessarily think that's bad at all. In fact, I think it has contributed a lot of beautiful things to my life and my nature. However, I have noticed when it comes to a particular subset of things I would like to do in life, and I'm talking about dreams, things that I don't have to do but would like to do, or maybe that are a more pleasurable avenue of doing something that I have to do, like make money or whatever, that I'm really struggling with consistency. Okay, everybody laugh. I'll wait. Everybody laugh. Yes, we know. Kennedy, we know you're struggling with consistency. That's literally all you've done for the past few years is be unbelievably inconsistent, except with saying happy birthday to you all, because I will always do that. And I will never stop. Well, I probably will have to stop at some point. It is literally the only reason I go on X or, Twitter. So besides that, I have struggled with showing up consistently for myself in areas of my life that are essentially dreams. And I think the reason for that is I am allowing myself to be so fully fueled by my feelings and letting my feelings dictate how much or how little I show up for something. Now, this is not necessarily an issue in all areas of my life because, like, say, a workout routine. I understand that building a consistent workout routine or other healthy habits or what have you requires a kind of discipline and showing up for yourself when you don't particularly feel like it. And I get that. My brain goes, yeah, I don't want to do this, but I know I should because of this reason, whatever the reason may be, because it will benefit my health or because of this goal or whatever. So I get that. I totally get that. And I think I've started to hone in on the fact that I do not take my sort of desires, not like on a whim desires, like, oh, I want to go buy a piece of cheesecake. Like, I'm talking long-term, like I want to have and grow a podcast that means something to me and to other people, or a YouTube channel, or write a book, or whatever. These like longer term desires or goals that I don't have to do, but that would be really meaningful to me in the long run. And these desires kind of stay the same, like the desire for the end goal. But when I start to pursue these things, I feel like I'm such a slave to my feelings of like, oh, I don't really want to do it anymore. Like I started doing it a little, or I get scared, I'm sorry, I'm sweating. Oh my God. I need to take off my big sweater. I was saying I kind of feel scared, or I'll get in my head, or I'll be worried about what someone thinks, or, whatever, yada, yada, yada. And I have always just sort of allowed myself to be like, yeah, I don't want to do it anymore. And I think here's the other caveat here in my personal journey, which is that I am someone who I did a lot of undoing of some really intense mindsets that I had for a long time. And I think that was really good for me. You can listen to what I think was the first episode of this podcast. It's called Get Softer, is the title of the episode. So I want to preface by saying that I went through a phase for a long time, and this is actually just reassuring for me to remember because I haven't really thought about it like this. I went through a phase for a while where I was challenging myself almost to give up on things and to be okay falling short, quote unquote, or just moving on or just doing whatever I wanted. Because I also, when I first started this podcast, when I first started doing YouTube videos, like those were what I felt like at the time were transition times that would end. And as I'm learning and growing and getting a better sense on what my life really looks like and what my career really looks like a lot of the time, I kind of realized I was treating my actual life as a temporary vacation from what I thought was my actual life, which was work. And at that time, I was just sort of okay just trying things and stopping them and doing whatever because I thought that there was something that was going to be all-consuming on the other end of this temporary period, which just because that's all I had ever known was that my life as an adult was my job being all-consuming, which is not the reality of my life right now and hasn't been for a long time. And even if you're really thrilled with how your career is going, which I am really happy with where I'm at, I have, no complaints, especially the way things are right now, which is not good. Not good. It's tough out there. I feel like even when you're doing quote unquote really well as an actor, most of your life is your life, your family at home with the people you have relationships with, and where your roots are, where your communities are. And I just didn't really get that because all I had done was everything all the time all at once. Anyway, I feel like I've talked about that a million times, but I just need to put a little asterisk in the how much I've quit things category to just say that I was kind of trying to do that, and I was in a very different mindset. I'm now in a mindset where I have really undone a lot of those negative mindsets. I feel a lot of peace. I do. I feel a lot of peace in my life, which is really awesome, and I would love to talk more about that in the future. I am in a place now where putting in more structured, more disciplined work, I think will be really fruitful for me. And hopefully I'll end up somewhere in the middle. Not that I've been slacking too much, but it's kind of, and slacking has such a negative connotation when that was kind of what I was trying to do, like figure out who I am as a human being and come into my own as an adult. And that's hard work in its own way. So as of right now, when I am coming back to something like this, I'm sort of needing to not listen to my feelings so much. And I kind of have had this, not mantra, but just this phrase kind of sticking and repeating in my head, which is focusing less on how I feel and more on how I behave. And just understanding that I never reach that long-term, later desire point if I don't just continue to behave throughout the whole process as if that endpoint is inevitable, or behaving as someone who's gonna see this through and not just going, oh, well, I feel scared. Oh, well, I feel like it's, feels like a lot of work and it's like kind of a harsh adjustment, or I feel like I'm not very good at it yet, or I don't have the skills I really need right now. And there's just so many things that I say to myself, at least, that convince me to stop. And I think I've never considered that that's not helpful. Like, obviously, it's not helpful. Like, I'm obviously not going forward in those pursuits, so how could it be helpful? But I think I've just, by not recognizing that that's a problem, because I am so naturally led by my feelings in other areas of my life, and like when I think about desires, I think about doing what I want to do. And I think because I have, and this might be unique to me in a way, because my greatest dream is my career and it's already being fed into and I'm already showing up for that dream, but it's just the nature of that dream is and I do plenty of things I don't want to do to continue pursuing that dream. So it's not, maybe it's unique to me in that these are kind of all secondary pursuits and secondary dreams in a way, but at the same time, I think I'm probably going to go through a lot of different seasons of my life. And I think I have lots of different dreams that suit those phases of life. I'm really being blinded, so I'm going to move right here. So maybe that changes the dynamic a little bit as we both consider this whole prospect or concept. I think I'm used to just sort of following my whims in that area of my life, and that area of my life has expanded so much that I'm realizing this held belief that these sort of secondary dreams fall under this category of just, easy come, easy go, whatever I want to do with it. I'll do it when I want to. I'll stop when I want to. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'll also insert that in there. Maybe that is an important aspect of life too. But for me, something I've come across is just that this has taken up such a larger part of my life. This time where this used to be a really small amount of time where I was just able to follow my whims and do what I wanted and kind of be carefree about it. That has expanded to be so much of my life. And I want to take it with both hands. And I think I've just conditioned myself to, and I do think this applies to a lot of other areas in life. And some it definitely doesn't. Your feelings obviously matter. They're super important and you have to honor them. But I'm talking about these just, like lame feelings that are just party pooper feelings, kind of. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, that's not helpful. Those feelings aren't helpful because the desire is still there. Because that's, a big part of this too, is that the grand desire, the end point desire is still there. And it's just the along the road kind of things that I just get scared, or I go, I don't feel like I want to share this much anymore. I talk myself out of this kind of stuff all the time. And I've just kind of let myself. And I haven't for a second been like, maybe I shouldn't let myself just talk my way out of this with my feelings. Because at the end of the day, here I am again. I clearly want to do this, So I feel like that's the most relevant part of my life that has been affected by this kind of, what if I focus less on how I feel and more on how I behave? I just feel like that part of my life has been the most applicable to that kind of new line of thinking. And it's been really freeing. I think once I realized, because it can sound kind of cold, and applied in the wrong context, I think it could be cold. But at the same time, when I hear that, I go, oh, it doesn't matter how I feel about it. I just need to take the physical action, just not make it that big of a deal. It's the same with doing chores. I'm like, what if I don't care how I feel? Again, applied in the wrong context. This could be totally the wrong path, okay? So I just trust you'll use your judgment call. I'm talking about the kind of feelings that come up that are just like slime, that are just like, I don't want to do this, and or this is blah, blah. You know what I mean? Or that get in the way of you actually accomplishing the things you actually, truly want to accomplish. So, I don't know. I think it's so freeing to be like, I'm having these feelings crop up. And maybe this comes from some mindfulness work of acknowledging that your feelings are just sort of a thing and they don't define anything or mean anything necessarily. Sometimes they do. Again, context. But that, I can be like, okay, I'm feeling unmotivated. I'm feeling scared of what people might think. I'm feeling scared that I'm not capable. And I'm just going to keep doing it. And I feel like feel the fear and do it anyway is sort of another way to kind of say this. Or feel the bleh, but do it anyway. And just kind of, I don't know, I think that I naturally really heavily weight my feelings and I give them a lot of power. And I don't think that's helping. I don't think that's helping me. So I just kind of wanted to take that concept out for a test drive. What do you think? Let me know. If you're on YouTube, let me know in the comments. If you are listening on Spotify, you can leave a response on Spotify as well. Or you can hop on over to YouTube and leave comments over there. Very curious to see what you think. It's no novel concept. I think sometimes you just have to hear things worded in different ways and hear them framed just slightly differently. And then one of them will just stick. And a lot of concepts are all sort of kind of the same. But for whatever reason, certain phrasings, certain framings are just stickier than others, at least for me. And for whatever reason, this has really stuck. So basically, in my pursuits and in my desires, I really just want to show up more consistently and just focus on my behavior and not focus so much on how I'm feeling about everything. Because I'm not always going to feel like doing it. And I'm not always going to feel like it's good, or I'm not always going to feel like it's worth something to anyone else or to me. But I know in the long run that it is, and that it does a lot of good for me, and that I hope so much that it gives you something, maybe even to think about, or to laugh at, or to just keep you company. And that is way more than enough for me. And I think I can just lose sight of those bigger goals sometimes when my feelings just wash in ever so consistently. So all that to say, I think I'm just going to keep showing up. And I hope that you do too. And we can have a really nice time together. So it feels so good to be back. Let me know your thoughts on the video. And yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's it. I love you so much. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts and you haven't given this podcast a 5-star rating, well, now's your chance. You can do it right now. I'm just waiting. So many of you have, and I love you so much for it. Leave me some sort of comment down below. Let me know what you think, what's going on in the new year, what kind of episodes you want to hear from me or see from me. I forget. You can actually see me. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. Okay. Well, I love you. Bye. Whoosh.